In this video, I'm going to show you how to use TAStudio to become a better Smash player. TAS stands for Tool Assisted Speedrun, and in the background, I'm showing you some clips of other people who have used these tools for more conventional things. But I'm not really interested in speedrunning or getting really cool clips of playing against computers. What I'm interested in is making the frame data come to life, and allowing me to answer questions I have about my competitive Smash game. In this video, I hope I can convince you that tassing is something you can start doing yourself. TAStudio is different from other tools in that it gives you reproducible and verifiable results, meaning that we can apply a bit of the scientific method to our inquiries. It also means that we can share not only our results, but also the source data for our experiments with other people, or even ourselves if we forget what we learned later on. Let me start by addressing some misconceptions that I often see about TAS. And then I'll give you a quick demo so you can see what TAStudio looks like. After that, we'll talk about the sort of questions for which TAStudio is an appropriate solution, and then I'll give a more full-length demo investigating one of those questions. First, the misconceptions. People often say that TAS is too hard to set up, so they don't do it. But you just need a computer, a copy of Smash, and the BizHawk emulator. Compare that to online, where you need a computer, Smash, and an emulator, a controller and an adapter, and people to play with. Perhaps the most common sentiment is that tassing is something other people do. But I hope by the end of this video, you'll be the kind of person who answers their own questions, instead of somebody who just wishes from a visit from the Task Fairy. Finally, I do have to admit that if there was a flowchart for the most efficient way to get better, tassing would not be on it. Okay, so let's look at a quick example to show how to use BizHawk and TAStudio and answer a very simple question. So we're going to open BizHawk and use a legally obtained ROM that we happen to have. And then under Tools, we can see there is a TAStudio, which is the tool that we're going to be using for tassing. So the basic setup over here is that we have these two controllers going from AX down to R, and then if I scroll over you can see there's another controller, AX down to R. And these are all the buttons on your N64 controller. So up is going to be straight up on the thumbstick, left is left, Z, B, A, and then you have these different C buttons, L and R. Now you don't need most of these buttons, so to make it a little more readable, I like to unselect some of the buttons to make them disappear under this columns. But I actually have a file which we're going to look at first, and so I won't bother with that. So let's take a look at this link Z cancel thing. So we're going to open this file, and the basic idea is with these controllers, you go frame by frame, and you can click to make the character do whatever action you just clicked for those number of frames. So I sort of just like drag these, and I can erase it by dragging back up. Sort of click individually to make them do all these things. And then once you've done that, you can select all the way on the other column what frame you want to start at, and you can either play it to sort of watch it. I think it's quarter or half speed by default. And then you can advance frame by frame as well to see what's going on. You'll also notice that if I go back up to one of these frames, over here on this side you can see the buttons for player 1 and the buttons for player 2, which come up here. So as I play this, you'll see the R's go away for player 1 and some L's pop up. And it is pretty quick. And so you can see that you don't actually have to be looking at this file here to understand what the inputs are being done if you just can see this side here if somebody records that for you. But the important thing here is that you could also get this file. I could send anybody this file and they could take a look at all the inputs I've done and they could edit it themselves and add some inputs. And so they could satisfy themselves that I faithfully research this question, and they can gain some faith in my solution. So the question that we're trying to answer, somebody came on the Discord the other day and they started claiming that depending on when you Z-cancel Link's down air, you'll have a different amount of landing lag after Z-canceling it. And I realized that the burden of proof is sort of on them to prove such a claim, but I decided let's just disprove it anyway. This is a good example. So here's the file that I made up to do that. I have the links jump together, down air together, Z-cancel at different times, and then buffer shield. And so that way you can see as soon as shield comes out, that means that should be the first possible frame that they regain control of their character. And so we can see if there's a difference between these two things based on when we z-cancel. So this player 1, which is the red link, is going to be z-canceling on frame 956. So we can walk through this. Whereas the green link is going to be z-canceling much earlier on frame 950. So here you can see the z input will appear 1 later for the input. The z input for player 2, the z input for player 1, and then they're going to land here on this frame. And as we go forward, shields pop out on the same frame, which will be 4 frames after they land. So this appears that it doesn't matter when you z-cancel, but let's investigate further. So first off, let's see, is this the last possible frame we can z-cancel? So I'm going to take this Z button press off by clicking on it, and so now there's no z-cancel from the player 1, the red link, and let me put it 1 frame later to see if that was really the last possible frame. And if we play this through, he has missed a z-cancel, so it looks like we do need to move it back, and now he gets a z-cancel. So frame 956 in this particular scenario is going to be the last possible frame that we could have z-cancelled. And if my memory serves me correctly, you have 10 frames to z-cancel, so 946 should be the first frame. So let's have player 2 do the first possible frame and player 1 do the last possible frame. If we play this through, they both z-cancel and they both get their shield up on the same frame. Be very surprised if that's not the case, and indeed it is. So let's check really quick. As a side point, is it a 10 frame window to z-cancel? Let me move this back to frame 945 and see what happens. Alright, and he's going to miss his z-cancel here, so it looks like it is indeed 10 frames. So that's nice. We can sort of verify that result. Okay, and wherever I put this, 956 is going to be the frame that both shields pop out. Okay, so this is just supposed to be a quick example of how you can actually use like the mechanics of using TAStudio and the sort of questions that you can easily gain an answer for. Now, of course, this is not a very interesting question. I think most of us who have played this game for long enough, there was no doubt in our minds that the claim that when you z-cancel will affect a landing lag was false. But still, I think it's a nice thing to look at. And the last point I want to make is that I could send this file to anybody. I could send it to the person making the claim, and they could investigate it very easily by a couple of mouse clicks and pressing play here. They could quickly see that indeed it doesn't matter when you z-cancel in this window. So using TAStudio gives us reproducible results. Right? I can send it to other people. It can be peer-reviewed, if you want to steal the phrase from science. So that's a pretty boring question, like I said, but let's take a look at something a little more interesting. And we can use some of these other things on the side, these branches and markers, some more of the exotic features. So now that we have BizHawk and a basic idea of how TAStudio works, let's talk about the task process. The first thing we need to do is figure out what questions we should even be using TAStudio for. Once we have something that we want to investigate, we can actually perform the investigation with the TAStudio file and constantly analyze our results as we're doing so, being sure to be very careful and double check our work if our conclusions are surprising. As I said, the first thing we need to do is make sure we're asking the right kind of questions. Before anything else, the questions should be specific so that we know exactly what we're trying to answer. But they also need to be reasonably measurable so that I can get meaningful results. If there are too many variables, then I'm going to be limited by my creativity. If I've tasked a situation, but then my opponent comes up with a crazy option,
and boom connects with the forward air. But now he's in a corner. He needs to get out, so he falcon kicks. No way! No way!
Then my conclusions are worthless. Let's do some example questions. I would love to know who wins the Pika Falcon matchup, but this isn't really something I can task. It's not specific at all, and it's also not really measurable since there are so many variables. So how about, what should I do as Kirby in this particular situation against Ness on the side platform? This question is specific, but it's not really measurable. Everything I try as Kirby, Ness will have different answers to. Am I supposed to think of all of them? Maybe we'd like to know what to do when facing jab, down tilt, shield pressure as Mario. This is specific, and it is also measurable, since we already know what Fox is going to do, so we just have to come up with some answers as Mario. Let's say during some friendlies, we landed a combo, and neither us or our friend knew if the combo was real. So we'd like to know, is there anything Yoshi can do to get out of it? Well, this is a specific question, assuming we remember the percents and the details, and it's also measurable, since we just want a yes or no answer. And as a final example, let's look at this common scenario where Pikachu gets an up smash on shield and then jab grabs afterwards. We'd like to know if this is true or if the person shielding can do anything about it. This is specific and also measurable, since all we want to know is if this form of shield pressure is true. But just because we found questions that are specific and measurable, it doesn't necessarily mean TASing is the right solution. Watching high-level Mario players deal with Fox shield pressure is probably a more useful and efficient solution than using TAS. And for the Pika on Yoshi combo, we can just go into training mode to see if it's true. But the up smash to jab grab on shield is a pretty good candidate for TAS, since the training mode combo meter doesn't work for shield stun. And obviously there can be multiple solutions for a given problem. Maybe TAS is a nice way of dealing with the Mario shield pressure if we can't find a good VOD. And if we care about whether or not the combo is optimal as opposed to just real, then we should see what high-level players do in a similar situation. And maybe there are other solutions, like talking directly to high-level players, trying stuff out with your friends and just seeing what works. But the main point is that there are tons of questions we'd like the answer to. And out of all of those, only a few are both specific and measurable. And out of all of those, only a few are good candidates for TAS. But once we have one of those rare questions that we can TAS, we'd like to open up TAStudio and get into it. The next 15 minutes will be a demo of me doing just that. Okay, let's do a slightly more interesting example. I have a file here that I've prepared. The only thing I've done is just selected the characters that I want to take a look at. So I have Falcon and Pikachu, and this is going to be some investigation of some of Falcon's options in a particular scenario. So online I'll often get hit by Pikachu down tilting me as I'm trying to dash grab, and then the Pikachu will run up and grab me, and I want to know what kind of options do I have in that situation. If the Pikachu is frame perfect, is there nothing I can do? Or perhaps we'll discover that there are some things that I can do, and so then I can implement them in my own game when I get this pretty common scenario for me to get down tilted. Okay, so there's nothing on this file except for, as I said, just character selection. So let's drop Captain Falcon down through the platform. So he's player 2, so we're on this side, and where are we at right now? Let's get some down inputs. Very good, just little platform drops. Now we're standing here. Okay, and we want to run in and try to grab Pikachu. So we're going to do a couple right inputs and then a grab. Let's see how that looks. Very good. Now I can back this grab up a little bit to sort of make it more frame perfect or whatever, like the furthest possible away grab. But I'm actually not interested in doing that in a way that I'll explain in a bit. What I want is that I want, when I grab Pikachu, to be reasonably close to him. So that way when this Pikachu down tilts me, which is going to beat out my grab, I'm pretty close to him. So let's get this down tilt going. So Pikachu is going to be holding down, and probably right about the same time that I grab, he is going to press A. Alright, so let's see if that down tilt is going to work. No, it doesn't. So I don't happen to remember off the top of my head the first active frame for Pikachu's down tilt, but it looks like it's, you know, less than 9 or so. Okay, so it'll work here. So let's just keep pushing it forward until we have the last possible one. Okay, so Pikachu is going to get grabbed here with this down tilt, but if he down tilts a frame earlier, it's going to hit me. So I am interested in getting this down tilt as late as possible for Pikachu. And the reason being that if Pikachu is down tilting me on the last possible frame, then that means once I get hit away, I'll be as close to Pikachu as possible. And so if we figure out that there is something that I can do as Falcon in this situation, as close to Pikachu as possible, then that's sort of a worst case scenario for me. So anything that works when I'm as close to him as possible will also work when I'm a little bit further away. If this down tilt comes out earlier, I'll just have a bigger window, so it's even good for me. So this is sort of our worst case scenario setup, where we get down tilted and now we want to figure out what's going on. Okay, cool. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go back to before this down tilt and this dash grab happens, and I'm going to set a marker. And the idea behind the marker is it's just going to be, let me right click here and do add, or I'd actually like to name it. So I'm going to go down here and add marker with text, and I'm going to say beginning. So what this is going to do is if I play this clip through and then I'm way down here on like frame 1000 or something like that, I can just double click this marker and that will bring me back up to here. So it's just sort of quality of life, the reason for me to do that. So now I'm back before the down tilt and I can continue doing my investigation. Okay, so now that I've gotten down tilted, I want to figure out the first frame in which both of us regain control of our character, and I like doing that just by buffering shields, because that will give us the, as soon as our shield comes out, you know that's the first frame that you regain control of your character. So let's take another look at that. So I can frame by frame. Okay, so Pikachu gets control here. By frame. Right here on frame 934, it seems Pikachu has control. Pikachu is player 1, so it's right here. And when does Falcon get control? Right after, is that 937? 937, Falcon gets control. Okay, so I'm just going to leave this first Z input here just as a reference for me. Very good. So now we can start figuring out what to do. I want the Pikachu to run in and try to dash grab me, and then later on I'll figure out how to respond to that. So instead of doing the Z input, what the Pikachu is going to do is run to the left and then grab me. And maybe it'll just be something like this. Let's see how this looks. Cool, well that works. I wonder if this is, I would like Pikachu here to be frame perfect. So what happens if I do a dash a little earlier? That'll still work. And a little bit earlier, that'll also still work. And that'll still work. So it looks like there's a pretty big window where we can hit the analog stick over before we actually have control of our character, and it'll still give us the perfect dash. So as you can see here, Pikachu is now walking. Pikachu is now walking, and if I take off this first L, Pikachu's dashing. So this is the first frame Pikachu can dash. So what's the first frame Pikachu can grab? We would like this to be frame perfect, so once again we're capturing sort of a worst case scenario for Falcon. Okay, so the grab misses here, but if I put it a frame back, it will hit. So I'm reasonably confident this is a frame perfect Pikachu down tilt into dash grab. Very good, and we gain control of our character a few frames later. So I happen to recall that the grab comes out, the hitbox for the grab is going to come out 6 frames later. So as you can see, it's going to happen here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 with the input, which means that we have something like 3 or 4 frames to act, because this here frame 937 is the first one we can Z-cancel, and 941 is when we get hit by the grab. Okay, so we have a couple options we'd like to try out, and I'm going to use branches up here to go through each of those options. So the first one I want to do is just see if I can shield jump. So I'm going to use this little button down here, add branch with text, and I'm going to say shield jump. I'm also going to try an out of shield up smash, and I will try dash and grab. Okay, so I have these 3 branches here, and what they're going to let me do is have sort of the exact same file changed in small ways. So if I add a bunch of weird frames here, and I'm on the shield jump branch, and I press this red update branch button, then if I go to the out of shield up smash branch and I load it with this button, we're going to go back to where we were. But if we go to the shield jump branch and load it, it's going to have all these inputs we added. So this will allow us to sort of have the exact same situation and try a couple of different options, each with their own branch. So let's do the shield jump branch first. That'll be the easiest. So we're holding Z right now, and when our shield comes out, we're going to want to jump. So let's just jump with the C button, see how this looks. That's not appear to work. Okay, but here we go. So we need to wait one more frame before our shield comes out, and it looks like we can shield jump out of Pikachu's grab, and I expect that we can also move that back a frame and we will still jump out, because we get 2 frames of intangibility when we shield jump. And so now I expect that if we moved a frame earlier, we're going to jump and sort of get grabbed out of the air. Yeah, I guess something like that. Or perhaps we're just getting grabbed before we even begin our jump squat. Yeah. Okay, so we have 2 frames here that we can shield jump out, so that's good to know. Let me update the branch here with that information. 2 frames is not great for me though. I don't have the sickest reflexes, and so maybe I can get my timing down and I can just work on this. But then we have the whole issue of what happens if the Pikachu is not frame perfect, which in all likelihood they won't be. If they throw their grab a little bit later, and we are frame perfect, then it's possible that they grab us out of the air. Right, so it's not just our timing that matters, but it's also our timing relative to our opponent. So I don't really have the reflexes or the time to deal with that, so this is an okay option. It's nice to know that I can shield jump out if I do it perfectly, but I would like to find something else. Okay, so let me make sure this is updated. And then I'm going to jump into this out of shield up smash, and let's see what it looks like here. So once again, we're going to be buffering our shield. We want to do up on the thumbstick and press A. Up on the thumbstick, and we press A. Okay, so that appears not to work. That appears not to work. It's not going to work. So as you can see here, it looks like we have the up and the A this early. It's actually trying to do a shield grab, and that's obviously not going to be fast enough because we started a few frames later than Pikachu's grab. So here we go. What we'd really like to do is get the intangible frames from a shield jump, just like we had on this other branch, but then cancel that jump squat animation into our up smash by pressing A. So as you can see here, if I just play the clip, I sort of dodge the grab with my shield jump, and then I up smash Pikachu, and that's obviously going to be a very juicy situation for me. So okay, so the first frame I can do it is right here, and let's see how many frames I can do this. It can be one frame later, and it'll still work. And it looks like if I'm a frame later on pressing A, what I'll actually do is I'll use my intangible frames to shield jump Pikachu's grab, and then after my jump squat, I'm pressing A, still holding up, so I'm going to get this up air. And that's obviously not what we want. Okay, so it looks like we have 2 frames, is that right? Yep, we have 2 frames, and so pretty much this is the exact same thing as the shield jump, because all we're doing is we're using the invincibility, or the intangibility I should say, that we get from shield jumping, but we're turning it into an up smash instead of just shield jumping out. This is nice because it's a sort of a stronger punish on Pikachu because we get the up smash. So maybe if we get the timing down for shield jumping, we should just do an out of shield up smash instead. But once again, this is sort of reliant on our timing, so maybe I'd like to find a slightly different option. And so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go to dash dance, and let's load this branch instead. So now our shield is going to come out on this frame here. If we play it, you see our shield pops out, and then we get grabbed. So instead of doing that, what I'd like to do is dodge Pikachu's dash grab by dashing myself and then coming back. So let's dash to the left on that frame a little bit and see how that looks. It does not look good. But of course, we should remember that we can sort of buffer our dash a little earlier. Oh, and there we go. So now it's looking better. So what's the earliest we can dash out of this? Okay, so it looks like if we start going to the left right before Pikachu grabs us, a frame perfect Pikachu, remember, then we're going to start walking, but if at the exact same time as they press the grab button, we hit the thumbstick to the left, we can dodge them. And let's try to convert this into something a little nicer for us, so let's go left and then right and then do a grab. And then obviously go to reload the extra thing. But something bad happened. Perhaps I'm not holding left long enough. That's interesting. Yeah, so it looks like I need to have left held longer for me to actually get the grab. Or did I do something stupid? Ah, yes, I had my left starting too early. Okay, so let's go left, right, and then grab. Left, a little bit more to the right, grab a little later. Okay, well that looks very nice as far as I can tell. Let's update this branch. So now the question is, if Pikachu is frame perfect, how quick do I need to be? How perfect do I need to be on this to dodge away? So obviously we can dash dance grab. So let's forget about the actual grab and just dash away. Sort of, I don't know how this is going. Let's sort of just dash away and just try to dodge that grab. And then as long as we can do that, I trust that I can hit the thumbstick back over and grab Pikachu. Okay, so here we have. This is the first one that works. Recall that if we put this one here, we can try to walk, and so we get grabbed anyway. So what happens if we take this first left input off? We still get the dodge, so we have 2 currently, 3. So we have 3 frames to hit the thumbstick to the left, and we can dodge this Pikachu's grab. So the reason this is a nice solution, as far as I can tell, is that if Pikachu doesn't dash grab us, or dash grabs us late and isn't frame perfect, we don't have to have perfect timing like we did for the shield jump or the out of shield up smash to punish the Pikachu. We can instead just always be sort of frame perfect or within 2 frames ourselves, and no matter what he does, we're not going to get dash grabbed. And if he does go for the dash grab, then we can punish it. So this seems like a really nice solution, and that's nice to know. So now in my games, I'm going to make sure that after I get down tilted, after going for something like this, I'm going to try to get the timing down where I can dash grab and punish the Pikachu for this follow-up, which turns out is fake. Now it's important to note that there are more options that I haven't talked about yet. I could try shield grabbing, or I could try doing jumping and doing like a quick nair out of shield or something like that. It's not very orthodox on Falcon, but there's lots of things we could try. And so just because I've tasked this doesn't mean I know everything that's going to happen. I only know if Pikachu is frame perfect, these are the options Falcon has, and this is how many frames it works. So as a summary, the 3 that I've looked at, shield jump, we have 2 frames to use either of the intangibility frames. The same for out of shield up smash, except we also have to press A to get the up smash. And for our dash dance, we have 3 frames. So for me, currently, dash dance is my favorite option because it has the biggest window, and notice that any frame our opponent is off is just going to be an extra frame that we get, right? So we have a minimum of 3 frames. And also, it seems that it's not timing related compared to what our opponent is doing. It's just timing based on the frames in the game. So I can practice this I can have a friend down tilt me, and then I can practice getting this perfect. And it's not going to matter what the Pikachu is doing for this still to be a good option. Okay, so this is nice. This is an informative thing that I can do, and I can save all of this stuff. I can save these files, and I can send this file to somebody else, and they could take a look as well and maybe screw around with it a little bit, get a better idea for what to do in this kind of a situation.
After our investigation, we want to make sure that we actually answer the question that we set out to. We'd also like to be the case that our conclusion isn't false. Probably the most common way to conclude something which is false is to have a bad assumption based on not understanding the game mechanics. So it's important to be really comfortable with the resources available to you. For instance, you wouldn't want to conclude that Pikachu has a shield break based on doing 2 up smashes on the ground, because you forgot about out of shield options. And of course, there are tons of ways of having a faulty assumption, even outside of TAS. Consider going into training mode and trying out this combo against Pikachu, noticing that since the combo meter goes all the way up, there's obviously nothing Pikachu can do about it. But of course, some relatively easy DI will actually get Pikachu out. So our conclusion was false because of a faulty assumption we had. It's also important to remember that whenever we task something, our conclusion is only as strong as the options that we remember to try. If we forget something, there might be a great solution out there that we won't be aware of. This can be remedied by seeing what other players do, either on our own games or when we specifically look up the matchup to see high-level players playing it. And there are other ways that we could have made our investigation better. For example, we said that we wanted Falcon as close as possible to Pikachu when he got hit by the down tilt, but we didn't make sure that the initial failed dash grab Falcon does was at the last possible frame. Doing this would increase the reliability of our results. We also only considered the A button timing press for the out of shield up smash option, instead of also considering the up on the thumbstick press. Of course, we were relying on the fact that the up is just going to be the same as the shield jump, but it would be nice to research that in case. It would also be useful to know if our conclusion holds when down tilt is used as an anti-air. These sorts of things are the reason there's a cyclic relationship between step 2 and 3 in the task process. After making a task file, you often go back and keep re-editing it and finding out new things. It's not the case that when you say I tasked it, that means you know the truth with a capital T. It's an ongoing process.